Hi there, and welcome to a special edition, a European edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast that's made by fans for fans, and where the content is free. And don't forget, guys, there's more than pods that's available for you on Gersnet. We have the forums, there's articles, there's some good stuff on the Gersnet website right now about the Benfica game tomorrow night. We have the social media, there's a history archive, and obviously we've got the podcast as well. So lots of stuff online there for all Rangers supporters, and it's all original, independent and free content made by us for you. It is a special European pod. We've been doing sort of preview pods for the Europa League game since the campaign started, so we're adding to that. So it's a sort of free pod, even though everything else you get is free. We would ask you, if it's the first time that you've listened, we would ask you to subscribe and share us on social media and let everyone out there know that we're here and what we're doing. As I've said to you every week now for a good number of months, we've got over 3,500 subscribers. So thanks to everyone who's subscribed so far. And if you want to subscribe, it would do us a great favour in helping us progress the pod and the website. So that would be great, and put the word out there, as I said, on social media. We are live tonight. It's the Wednesday night before the game against Benfica at Ibrox tomorrow night. But the pod will be available to download or stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all the usual places where you get your podcast, guys. I've only got one guest tonight. We've got he's like a European football aficionado. It's Alex Anderson. How are you, Alex?
I'm absolutely fine, sir. Pleased to be here tonight. I'm not going to take it too personal that he's decided to go back to like no screen. You know, there's no video tonight with me on it. So there was two screens required for you and David, and I'm not going to tell the listeners about the comments that we're going to be saying that we need 3 screens just to get my face on. So that's fine.
No, but, that wasn't for me. I wouldn't do such a thing. I don't know who done that, but it certainly wasn't.
Actually, wait a minute. Let me think about it. I think it was actually my wife, mate. I think that's
I was actually going to say, if you fancied the cameras on, we wouldn't have had the fancy Sky Sports News kind of look, because I am not yet trained up on how to do that. But I was just a wee bit rushed. I've been a wee bit busy today, and I was kind of rushed getting the agenda up. And then obviously, as we're about to discuss, the news broke about Diego Maradona. So I was I watched a wee bit of the news for a wee bit half hour, which probably I didn't have time to do, but I just felt I needed to watch it for a wee bit. So yeah, a wee bit more rushed. So I forgot to say to you just before we came on air if you wanted the cameras on. So that's my fault. So sorry about that, Alex.
No. I wouldn't want you inundated with the all the ladies and some of the men on the turn as well. Colin, if I was on, but too sexy. It's not that kind of show.
We couldn't deal with the fan mail, to be fair.
Exactly.
You couldn't deal with it. So yeah, I mean, I suppose before we get on to the big game tomorrow night and everything that's revolving around that, I suppose we have to talk about the news that broke today about Diego Maradona. Now, I don't know your exact age, Alex, but I know you're roughly of the same sort of generation as myself. And I mean, I can't say that as a person, it was someone that you would find likable. You know, some of the stuff that he was involved in, you did kind of think, I don't really like that guy much, to be honest with you. But as a footballer, for me, the summer of '86 was all about Maradona. I was 13 in '86. Now, I can remember a wee bit of 1982. I can remember a small part of '82. I was still quite young in '82, but '82 was probably the first World Cup where I took a wee bit of an interest. '86 was the one where I was like, boom, I'm in, I'm watching this. And I put something out on Twitter earlier on there today. To me, his death today it's not just about the footballer that's dying. It's about how football was in those days. It feels like it's dying. I've speaking to a couple of mates. Today, like the youngsters, like my son, he's 15, right? So if he wants to watch Lionel Messi or Ronaldo or whoever, he can watch every single game that they play in. And
yeah,
whether it be club or country. Back in the 80s, your Maradonas and all that, they only came around once every 4 years. And sometimes you didn't know them. Sometimes these superstars just sort of who's this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember Hullet being a bit like that in '88. You know what I mean? But in the European Championships, it was like, Christ, who's this guy? Never heard of him before. That's gone. You know, there's nothing like that now because we've all got access to so many leagues across the world and the TV and stuff like that. I mean, we all knew who Maradona was in '86, but he still really, he made that World Cup his own, and he sort of dragged a fairly average Argentina side and sort of kicked them into being world champions. Sorry, you know, and there's the debate that rages on with people from different generations about Messi and Maradona and all that kind of thing. But for me, Maradona will always have a sort of special place in my heart, just for that summer. You know, I mean, he never quite replicated it again in 1990. He was well on the slide by '94, and the drugs were kicking in by then.
Yeah.
But '86, I mean, it's hard to put it into words if you weren't there.
It's I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying, that it's about the age that we grew up in. I'm a few years older than yourself, mate. I'm in my early 50s, and you're absolutely spot on with Maradona's death. For guys of our kind of age group, is also about a death of a part of our childhood, you know, a part of my teenage years for me as well, into my early 20s. But I think, and you're quite right, you're saying a lot of the stuff he's done, especially maybe his involvement with, you know, the Camorra and what have you in Naples and all the things that leads to. It's, you know, not the kind of stuff you want to be advocating in any way, shape or form. But this guy, the fact that we didn't have the television coverage of everything in Europe and beyond the way we do now, and we still knew about him. I mean, my first World Cup was 1978. Which Diego was a bit bitter about not being picked for that squad as well in latter years. He was bitter about a lot of things in latter years. But my dad, one of the many reasons I've got to be bitter, we've all got our wee family rows, but the biggest one for me is my dad took me to my first Scotland game in 1980, and it was a 0-0 with Portugal at Hampden. But the summer before that, and the year before that in '79, him and his mate Michael. I mean, my dad would only be 30 at the time, so he's wanting a day away for the Wains. You know, we're from Ayrshire, so it's a wee journey. Him and his mate are just going up to Hampden to watch a Scotland game, get a few drinks in before and after. Doesn't know what to be telling the kids about, but I'll never forgive him for not taking me that day, because that's the day Maradona scored his first goal for Argentina. And my dad also, to make things worse, I'm the one in the family that goes on and on about football, as you probably know. My dad's kind of taciturn. He doesn't really talk about games he went to. He's not really interested in reliving stuff like that. But this is the one game he goes on and on about. The Argentina team that won the '78 World Cup plus Maradona. He gives it the whole kind of scene set and stuff and all that as well. You know, like they're on the old Celtic end at the time, the old East Terrace, and there was like 60,000. There was a bit of space in the old East Terrace, and he's sitting there with his mate Michael, getting sunburnt and just watching the best football he says he's ever seen. And it was up that end that Maradona scored his first goal for Argentina. And I, as you say, the influence on all our lives this guy had. He's led Boca Juniors, Barcelona and Napoli, who are basically three countries. I went to a Serie B game in 1999. It was Atalanta against Hellas Verona. And the insult that they were throwing at each other was Napolitani. Calling somebody a Neapolitan was the worst insult you could throw at somebody at the football. You know, if you're in the north of Italy or anywhere above, really Calabria. And it's dealt with in that documentary, the famous documentary from last year about Maradona. But that's what it meant to the people of Naples. They'd never won anything. They could get like an 80,000 crowd, but they'd never won Serie A. And he brings them 2 Serie A titles. He brings them their only ever European trophy. And you're talking about, you know, he seemed to make that World Cup of '86. He's only literally made it his own, mate. He won that World Cup as close as you can possibly get in association football to winning a World Cup on your own. That's what we witnessed that summer. And for me, Leo Messi is getting there. He is the only guy for me that can beat Maradona, and it's only Maradona that he has to beat, because, you know, as they say in the song, Maradona è más grande que Pelé. He's just quite simply the greatest player I have ever seen. And Messi was never kicked the way Maradona was kicked. Football was a different sport then. And you watch, it is part of your childhood. It's all terraces, it's all photographers running onto the pitch. You'll see it in the footage over the next few days. But in amongst all that, there's a guy a wee short guy, mixed race from Argentina, which is a very, very snobby country, who's had a hard life and has basically led Argentina itself and 3-4 other nations. I mean, his downtime was at Seville and Newell's Old Boys, which the pressure for these supports, it's like 4 or 5 of the biggest supports, most pressury supports in the world. And he's come for nothing and given all these people exactly what they want. So the wee man has suffered. That's why he's away at 60 years old, because of the good time he had. But he was surrounded by people who just wanted from him. And I just hope that he did have a good time in the way out, because he gave all of us a cracking time watching him.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree, really, Alex. It's that whole time. And, you know, what he done with Napoli, I think if you took Messi out of Barcelona and put him in Napoli, it's hard to see him having the same impact, you know what I mean? And it's hard to compare, but, you know, I think one thing that Messi has going for him, if you're going between, you know, the two of them, a direct competition between the two, is, you know, Messi had a team in Barcelona that was set up all around him, but with, you know, your Xavis and Iniestas and all these, it was all set up with world-class players to let Messi play. Whereas with Maradona, you kind of felt it was just a case of every team he was in was like, just get to him, something will happen, you know what I mean? So it's difficult to compare, but I think because of the era that I come from, I think I'll always sort of vote with Maradona. And yeah, a really sad day today. It does feel like an end. Obviously, it's an end of a chapter in terms of his life, but in terms of football as well, and how we used to view it and take it in and all that kind of thing, it felt a wee bit more innocent back then. And yeah, really, really sad. But anyway, we'll move on to tomorrow night. Happier occasion, obviously. Alex, Benfica coming to Ibrox for the first time on a competitive basis. So really looking forward to that. The only really sort of downside to it is that we can't be there. I know you're gutted at that, and I must admit that this is all the fixtures this season. This is the one I'm kind of like, that would have been a great one to be at, but it is what it is, I suppose. It's match day 4 in Group D. We can secure a place in the last round of 32 if we win tomorrow night. Some wee stats here regarding Rangers and Portuguese opposition. We're unbeaten at Ibrox against Portuguese clubs in European competition. We've won 7 and drawn 2. We nearly beat Benfica and shattered their sort of run, their home run. So we stopped our winning run, but we couldn't beat them on match day 3 there. Interesting stat about Benfica in Scotland. They've only won one of their 5 UEFA Cup matches in Scotland, and that was against Hearts in 1961. The other 4 of the 5 have all been against Celtic, and they've been beat 3 times in those 4 and got a 0-0 draw in 2012-13. So Benfica don't have a great record in Scotland. And we have a good record against Portuguese clubs at Ibrox. So that is straight away, that's something positive for us there, Alex.
Absolutely, aye, yeah, and I'm just getting scared at how positive I'm getting about it, mate. Yeah, the stats all say this should favour us, and I mean, talking about being a bit older, you know, you'll remember go back to beating Boa Vista in the mid '80s under Souness, and you know, it was Maritimo in penalties. You know, I think it was Alec McLeish. You know, and also Big Ek, he had a result against Porto in the Champions League before Stevie got a result against them last season. So. And you're absolutely right what you're saying. It used to really pain me, you know, we're talking about nobody wanting to get to the game tomorrow. It's like, it's almost like it's destined to happen. I used to look at Benfica, you know, it's one of the most romantic kind of grand dames of European football. Please, I want to see these guys at Ibrox one day. And then the one time we do get them. We're not allowed in the ground because they always seem to get Celtic. Whereas we would get Sporting Club, you know, we got them.
Yeah, but I mean, we've had Sporting and Porto a few times, but Benfica just always seem to pass us by.
And it's coming up that, you know, and it was always it was kind of epic games between Celtic and Benfica, you know, and it was always like epics between us and Sporting, you know. But I absolutely gutted that we're not going to get to see him. I was telling you, I went down to see them at Anfield 2010. I've mentioned this a few times. And one Steven Gerrard kind of ran the show that night. He didn't score, but Liverpool beat them 4-1. But it was just, I just got to the point where I had to see Benfica. I've got a thing about scoring now for the European finalists, about seeing all the teams that have reached the European finals. And Benfica was like kind of biggest name at that point that I'd never seen in the flesh. I just get sick of waiting to see them come to Ibrox. And here we go.
You know, fancy going to Celtic Park to watch them, no?
I couldn't quite bring myself, mate. It's
Why is that, Alex? Why is that?
I think there should be a thing that I'm allowed to go to Celtic Park. I'll give Celtic money as long as I'm allowed to shout abuse at them, and it wouldn't have been well that night. So
you could have got a ticket for the Benfica and you'd have been in there.
I probably could have. I probably could. I got into a row the other day. Actually, there was an Irish fellow on Twitter caught me out. I've always felt one of the kind of magical things about Benfica is I think their strip looks, it is red. They play in red, but it looks kind of orangey to me. And this guy's gone, no, Alec, that's you seeing it through that's you getting super bigoted. If you
super
like something,
strip.
Aye, that's you got to be. It's got to be orange if you like it. There's just something about them. Their reds are kind of different kind of red. It seems kind of lighter, But this is. I mean, Real Madrid are the European Cup. The legacy that we're living off just now, that UEFA and other broadcasters and advertisers have been exploiting for years. Rangers were part of that. Campbell Ogilvie, Champions League. The European Cup finals that I grew up watching, you'll be the same, mate, was just 1-0, 1-0, 0-0, 1-0. They were awful. And they were living off the memories basically created by Real Madrid winning the first 5 European Cups, 50s up to 1960. And then it was Benfica. They're the second great dynasty. European football. We get Celtic fans telling us they're the first British team to win the European Cup, first Northern European team to win the European Cup. They're absolutely right. Benfica were just the second club, full stop, to be champions of Europe. Second club to get to retain it. Second club to get to 3 straight finals. Only 6 clubs have been to 3 straight finals of the European Cup, Champions League. They're absolutely a magical club. Porto have overtaken them. They've won twice as many trophies, but the thing with Porto is they've only played in 5 finals. Benfica, there's a mythical curse placed on Benfica, as we'll all know about. But they've played in 10 European finals. It's a magical historic club, and I want them. I want that scalp for Rangers. As I was saying, when we're talking after the 3 each game on the pod that day, I think that the players deserve it and the fans deserve it. And I think there's something about Rangers just now. And I think Benfica have just come to Ibrox. I'm hoping it's at the wrong time for them and at exactly the right time for us.
There's another wee interesting stat. Benfica, they've never scored a goal in Glasgow. Certainly not competitively. As we're about to discuss, they came over in '65 to play Rangers in a challenge game, and they scored that night. But they've never scored a competitive goal in Glasgow. So that's something that gives us a wee bit of sort of hope as well, that that they don't travel well, especially when it comes to Glasgow. And on that challenge match, we were talking about it today on the WhatsApp. It was 1965, Rangers 3, Benfica 1. George McLean and Jim Forrest. Forrest got 2 goals that night. But one of the things that came out of it, it's an odd thing, was the friendship between Willie Henderson and Eusebio. After the game, they went out and had a few drinks, a bit like we were talking earlier on today about Jim Baxter and what was his name at Real Madrid?
Puskas, aye.
Puskas. I mean, they were out in Drum Chapel in a house party in Drum Chapel. There was a similar thing with Willie Henderson and Eusebio. After this game at Ibrox, they went out for a night out in Glasgow. I think again in 1971, he was over with Portugal playing against Scotland, and I think it was Henderson's last cap for Scotland. And they two and Billy Bremner went out in the town in Glasgow that night, and it resulted in this sort of 40, 50-year friendship between Willie Henderson and Eusebio. So there is a sort of a wee bit of a connection between us and Benfica in that way.
I hadn't actually. I didn't know about that until you mentioned it today. I knew about the Jim Baxter famously taking out Puskas, who the Galloping Major, the wee podgy stomach on him because he liked his sausages and he liked his drink, and that's what Baxter was saying. He just caught him at the end of the game, and he couldn't really speak much English, but he just said to him, was it whiskey, jiggy, jiggy?
Whiskey. Aye,
so
that's right.
He just fired him up. He had a wee house party in Drum Chapel, and Puskas, I think he scored the only goal of the game at Ibrox that night, and
I think he scored somewhere else as well. Actually,
it
was just sausages and whiskey lights.
That wasn't his last result of the night. Let's just put it that way.
Aye.
I think that must be a thing, because that's the thing for Benfica, is I was saying, they've kind of set the legacy in the European Cup. They were the last team to do the really exciting finals until basically Stevie G and Istanbul. That was the last. There was a lot of good exhibitions. AC Milan, winning a couple 4-0, smashing to watch. Everybody remembers the Real Madrid beating Eintracht Frankfurt 7-3. They were all kind of one-sided exhibitions, but the actually truly exciting European Cup finals were the two times that Benfica won it. In one of the games, it was a hat-trick for Puskas. That's one of the kind of pub quiz questions: who scored a hat-trick in the European Cup final and ended up in the losing team? Well, it was Puskas against Benfica, for Real Madrid, against Benfica in Amsterdam in 1962, and Eusebio scored 2 for Benfica, who won the game 5-3. So it was as if the Rangers team was determined to get everybody who played in that game and scored and get them absolutely wrecked.
With regards to the game tomorrow, Alex, Steven Gerrard had his press conference today. Now, there's a couple injuries. Ryan Jack is possibly out. I think they're going to leave it till as late as possible. Zungu is out. He's picked up a knee injury on international duty. Other than that, it looks like we've got a fairly clean bill of health. So, in terms of the starting 11, but a strong sort of squad to pick from, and all looking positive in that area.
Aye, looking really positive. I mean, I was a bit. Zungu, he looked great in his wee cameo against Hamilton Accies, but you're probably thinking it's still a bit too early for him at this point. You want to see him get a few kind of less pressurey games under his belt with Rangers before you put him into this. Anyway, so I don't think it's a massive loss. And you're wondering if Stevie G might have wanted to go with the same 3 in midfield as he did, well, as far as you can call it a midfield with the way we play. Jack, Kamara, and oh my God, Steve Davis. If he's wanted to do the same thing as he did in Lisbon, if he's wanted to do that tomorrow night, but I doubt he would anyway. I think he's going to probably be more aggressive tomorrow night anyway. So we've been permanent, kind of any 2 from that 3 in the midfield, and putting Scott Arfield in there in our other European games, and we've been more than good in those games. Thinking about Galatasaray, thinking about Standard Liège away, it's worked really well. I think last season I would have been more upset. I thought of missing Ryan Jack for this game, because I think Jack and Davis, they were wee kind of boiler room, if you like. They get it going away from home. I remember the game in Porto last season, and even in Lisbon in the first game this season at the Stadium of Light, when we're under pressure in the first kind of 10 minutes or so, they got it going with their wee 1-2s, a wee bit interpassing. That's when Rangers start to motor, especially away from home in Europe, when Davis and Jack get together. But he's not out it yet, Jack. We don't know for sure if he's definitely out. Maybe it's a bit of mind games for Stevie, but there's just nothing to be worried about. I think the only thing to be worried about is overconfidence, and I think that's amongst the fans who are not going to be there. I don't think the players are in any way overconfident. I think they are unbelievably focused. I think what happened in Portugal is why we leathered Hamilton Accies 8-0 as opposed to maybe 4 or 5. And I think it's had a big part to play on what happened on Sunday against Aberdeen as well. I think they've been probably given a bollocking or whatever, or they just know amongst themselves that they just switched off. They just switched off in Lisbon. We're happy to write that off after everything we've been through. I mean, we would all have taken a point before the game. The players get a free pass for that game, but I think within themselves they're absolutely raging at how it went there, and I think they're determined to right that. And I'm quite interested about what's going to happen tomorrow night, because I think we've got a bit of a we've got a bit of a score to settle as far as the players are concerned with Benfica.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point actually. That's something I hadn't considered, that the Hamilton result came in the back of maybe a bit of anger and frustration at how that night in Lisbon finished. That's an interesting point. I mean, the squad trained today. We beat Aberdeen on Sunday there quite comprehensively, and that seems to be something that's happening a lot. It's a feature of this season. Everything seems to be going well. So we are going into this game in a sort of very confident mood. But as you say, you don't want to be overly confident. but I mean, they can learn from the mistakes in Lisbon. You know, we conceded early, which was frustrating. You know, you've not even had time to set up, and it was really individual mistakes. You know, Hollander got himself in a mess for a couple of the goals. Scott Arfield, for a player of his sort of experience, I honestly don't know what he was thinking. We tried to play that ball through to Morelos in the sort of dying seconds of injury time. You know, to me, you just keep the ball. But you know, players are players, they're human beings, and you know, they can make mistakes like anybody else, like you and me. You know, Otamendi getting sent off, I think that helped on the night, because I think maybe up until that point it was looking a wee bit touch and go, but there was surely enough on the night, and since then, the performances since then, and our performances in Europe overall, to give us belief that we can go out there tomorrow night and get a result.
Absolutely, mate. I think it's like I say, we've been through so much as a support and as a club. I'm not just talking about since 2012. I'm actually talking about in Europe in general. Some of the stuff we've watched over the years, you know, looking like we're going to do the business and then kind of throwing it away and what have you. We're kind of there's a lot of talk of scar tissue these days, but we'd scar tissue long before 2012 when it came to European football. So we're kind of in uncharted territory with the consistency of this Gerrard team. You know, since day one, you know, he's been working absolute miracles. And that is really all it's about tomorrow night. That's my only doubt, is the fact that it's all going so well, because there's nothing about this team that's telling us they're about to chuck it against anybody. They can't be dismissed. They're chock full of cracking players, even if they've got a few missing. But I like the fact there's been a 3-week break. I think that's actually crucial. Because the way we ended that game, it actually reminded us of how Braga must have felt, you know, back in February when we did them last season's Europa League. That way, between the first leg and the second leg, they must have been wondered, do we kind of go with the mindset that we won the first 60 minutes easy? No, Braga coasted that first hour at Ibrox, scored 2 cracking goals, looked like they could have scored a few more, and then they're just ambushed. And I think it was only 6 days, almost 6-day turnaround between those two games. And I think, although we were absolutely fantastic in Braga, I think a lot of that was because Braga didn't know where to stick or twist. They didn't know what Rangers they were going to get. Or they didn't know what Braga they should be. You know, should they give us more respect for the last 20 minutes of that game at Ibrox, or should they just try and stick with the 60 minutes where they were romping it? And I think Rangers could have suffered a bit from that after what happened in Lisbon, because I was on here just like practically in tears after that game because of how well we played. And I know it was against 10 men, but we caused, you know, it was that fantastic ball for Stevie Davis and a fantastic run for Ryan Kent that caused Otamendi to get sent off. You know, he had no choice really. You know, we made that happen, and then we just didn't finish the chances. Scott Arfield, bad ball through, as you say, for the equaliser from Benfica, but also, you know, maybe kind of switched off a bit, you know, for the second goal. He's fouled the guy and he's turned away from the ball. But the whole midfield, you know, Kamara, Davis, Jack, who'd been integral to the way we'd played, to the fact that we're romping that game, they all turned their back on the ball or walked away from it or dawdled towards it. Everybody kind of switched off. So I don't know if Rangers would be thinking to themselves tomorrow night, if it was just like a week between the games, as it had been the first part of the group, they'd be thinking, are we a bad team? You know, are Benfica better than we thought? Is it our fault? You know, what do we do? And I think that's what you've seen in that Hamilton game and the Aberdeen game. It's like, no, we're a good team. We just switched off and we are never switching off again. And I think it's actually Benfica that they want to take that out on. You know, and I mean, don't get me wrong, Jorge Jesus, their manager, you know, he looks like you know, an old member of Whitesnake. You know, he's just kind of let the hair go. You know, he kind of accept it. He's in his mid-60s, but he's a super experienced manager. He won the Copa Libertadores with Flamengo just last year. I remember watching the final. It was on BBC. He's got them to 2 UEFA Cup finals, 2 Europa League finals in the last decade. This guy, he knows what he's doing. He'll have assessed Rangers, but Benfica are, I mean, I know they beat a third division team in the cup at the weekend there, but Braga, talking of Braga beat them 3-2 at the Stadium of Light in the league game after they played us. So that was that, and Boa Vista before they played us beat them 3-0 in Porto. So it was the last three consecutive meaningful games. They would three-pit past them. So I think they're now in a situation they don't know whether to stick or twist. And I think the last thing they want to meet is a super focused Rangers.
Well, I mean, they're not really in the best of form. I mean, you mentioned there that they beat a sort of third division side, but it was only 1-0. Although they rested a few players at the weekend. They're currently sitting third. They're 4 points behind Sporting Lisbon and sitting, I think it's goal difference that separates them between Benfica and Braga. They've also got issues with players. Another player has tested positive for COVID-19. That's the fifth member of their squad. Two that have recovered from the virus are sort of coming back, but one of them is injured. Another two are having to self-isolate, and there's 3 or 4 other players who are currently injured. So you're getting a lot of talk now that we're going to be facing Benfica's kids and all that kind of thing, which could, talking about the feeling of overconfidence, it could lead Rangers in a bit of a cul-de-sac and into a sort of a position of false security, and then maybe end up in the receiving end of a sucker punch. But you kind of get the feeling from this Rangers team at the moment, Alex, that's not what's going to happen. That they are focused, that they are well drilled, that they know their jobs, have been told by Steven Gerrard and his coaching staff exactly what they need to do, and they're all committed to doing that to the letter. So even although there are these issues with Benfica, and it could be a bit of a banana skin for us, you get the feeling that we're not going into this overconfident. I think what you say there is right. I think we're going into this with a feeling that we've got a score to settle and we want to do a professional job and do that. And also the carrot there is, if we do win the game and we qualify, it gives Steven Gerrard 2 free passes and allows them to manage that squad in a better way and have players ready for other games domestically that are more important.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, the thing with Rangers just now, you look at the post-match interviews. Stevie G on Sunday there, the fella from Sky Sports News was actually asking him. He asked him, you've been involved in kind of title races before, so how do you communicate to the players? How can you help the players with that? And Stevie G just kind of cut the face off the guy. He says, "No, I haven't been involved in that." And the fella Stevie G was actually out of order. The fella was just meaning that you've been involved in title races. But Gerrard is not having it. He is just shutting down any talk of even being in a title race, even anywhere near the title. It is game by game, the concentration. In the interview with Kamar Roof, he's trying to answer the questions before the fella had finished answering them. Alfie coming off the park in the huff because he's no scored, despite the fact he was central to all 4 goals. They are focused beyond belief. And I think what's happened with the squad, building up the squad, obviously it just generally increases the quality of talent we've got at our disposal. But I think Rangers are only thinking about the opposition now. They're in that position where it's themselves. I don't mean that in the kind of we can only beat ourselves. I mean that in that the players are scared of losing their position. They're scared, but they're also scared of letting down their teammates. And the focus is, it's all coming from the manager. You were talking about that podcast. I can't remember the name of the podcast, mate. It was it's kind of advertisement heavy thing, but it was about management, or being a winner or whatever. And Stevie G,
I think it was a top level podcast. It's called. Yeah.
So I gave that a listen. My God, I was practically running up to Ibrox to bust through the dressing room door to get on the park and give them blood. It was unbelievable, the focus, and I think that's what's happening. It's the players have got the stamp of Gerrard. The whole club has got that stamp, And by the way, Ross Wilson, I know Steven Gerrard's involved in this as well, obviously heavily involved, but you could have been taking a wee lap on around the park on Sunday there as well, because you've got, Ross McCrory is out. He's making Aberdeen what they are this season so that they can take points off Celtic at Pittodrie. But then he's getting taken out of the team because he's on loan from us when they come to play Rangers. And you've got Jamie Murphy the day before doing the damage for Hibs to take points off Celtic at Easter Road. It's not just the depth of the squad and the attitude, it's just like the whole club. I know we've got the financial figures weren't the best, but as you guys were saying on Sunday's pod, you're in a position where you sell Alfredo Morelos, you sell Barisic, you sell Ryan Kent. That's done. That's the books are clear. We're looking fantastic, and I think it's bleeding. It's more a case of players are just wanting to make sure, the Rangers players are wanting to make sure they're part of this team, they're part of this club just now. They're fighting for their places all the time, and the intensity does not let up. And I think it's part of just the way we're going just now. It's the Gerrard, the Gerrard way, the Gerrard MO, and it's just the Gerrard intensity, and that man just wants to win a league title, and it's us he's going to do it with. There's a tweet going about just now, or I saw it on Twitter anyway, a clip of all Gerrard's Champions League goals for Liverpool, and you see them scoring. I mean, apart from the quality of the goals themselves, you see them scoring against Inter, against Milan, against Real Madrid, against everybody in Europe. And you're thinking, this is why this guy fears nobody, because he's beat everybody when it comes to Europe. But it's the league title. He wants it. He wants it like an addict wants his drugs. And I love the feeling. I love that feeling when the club they get away from you in the best possible way. It's like I don't mean they don't need the supporters, but it's like you're almost in a position where at times we felt we need to tell Rangers players what it's about to play for Rangers. We need to G them up, we need to get them going. There's times just now when I see these interviews, I see Hadji and Ryan Kent beating themselves up in the park. There's times just now I feel like going out there and going, no boys, you're doing fine. This is great.
Stop being so hard on yourselves.
Aye.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. I've got a wee plan. Like me and my boy, when we go to the European games, we tend to go for something to eat beforehand. Burger and chips and all that kind of thing. We normally go to Hard Rock Cafe, just get burger and chips. I get a pint, he gets a juice. So we can't do that. So I'm going to do some homemade burger and chips tomorrow night. We're going to try and make a wee night of it and try and make it a bit more special. So really looking forward to it. Obviously, I'm assuming you'll be watching it at home, Alex. And do you think we'll do it?
No, I mean I'll be tier 4 busting to come through and get myself a burger at your place. Brilliant. Don't tell me you're making burgers, mate. I'll be at your front door. Nicola Sturgeon trying to get me back. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll just be doing my usual of try to work myself into a frenzy of worry. Because that's the way I cope with these games. I like to try and get to the disappointment in my head before it might arrive in the park, to protect myself, but this season you can't even get a chance to worry about Rangers. It's a bit like this season's been a bit like the kind of long version of the start to that game at Rugby Park when we won the league in 2011. It's before you get a chance to worry. They've done the business and it's on to the next game. But
I think it feels a wee bit like 92, 93 to me. That's the last time I felt so confident going into every game. I'm not saying we're the best team in Europe or the best team in the world or anything like that, but I fancy us every game. I really do. I mean, every game we play now under Steven Gerrard, I'm like, we can win this. You know what I mean? And so you go into it with it's probably the most I've felt to being a Rangers supporter in a long, long time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Really, really looking forward to it. And hopefully we can get a result. And then that's us. We can put Europe to one side until when's it kick off again, sort of February, March time.
Yes.
And focus on things domestically. Anyway, Alex, kind of conscious of time, so I think we'll wrap things up there. So a big thanks to Alex for his contribution there tonight. Brilliant stuff again from him. You can tell he loves his European football. He's mad for the European football. We'll have the Sunday night show. We won't have a Friday night show tomorrow. We don't think too much content in a week and all that kind of thing. So no Friday night show tomorrow. We premiered that last week and it seems to have gone down pretty well. But we won't have one tomorrow. But Ross is back on Sunday. I believe it's Ross that's hosting on Sunday. And obviously he'll be looking at the game tomorrow night and Rangers game at Falkirk on Sunday. In the meantime, get yourself on to Gersnet at www.co.uk. There's lots of stuff. I'm struggling to get that out there. There's lots of stuff on there now, including a breakdown of the annual report and accounts. There's a good thing on that. Have a wee look at that. I've done a wee blog as well out there, guys. If you want to give that a wee check out about when Rangers played Ajax in 1973. It was part of the centenary celebrations, but it also gave birth to the European Super Cup. So if perchance you want to read that, please do. Until Sunday, and in the meantime, guys, as I say at this sort of strange time, stay safe, look after one another. Until the next time, bye for now.